Evan. Good, how are you? Come on in. How are you today?
Not bad, not bad.
Good.
Good to be here with all of you.
Welcome to Sinister Halloween Con. Welcome to the panel room.
Okay.
So I want to start out with asking you what the process was like for creating the original screenplay for Underworld.
Let me see. Well, you know, Lynn, the director, has started with him. So let me be clear about that. He got he was trying to get his first directing gig, and he was being sent a lot of bad scripts, by his agency. And so he went on a meeting, and I think it was with Dimension, and they wanted to do a werewolf movie, since Blade had done so well for the vampire genre. So once he got home, he called me. He says, well, what do you think? And I said, well, really not much. And that's because there really hasn't been a good werewolf movie. And we're talking about the late 90s. And of course, you have the original Wolfman, which is classic. My favorite was probably The Howling. And then after that, you had American Werewolf in London. So those were the prevailing werewolf movies out there. I don't count, I was a teenage werewolf. I don't like that very much. But he said, okay, well, do you have anything? I said, no, but just give me a week and let me see what I can come up with. So after kicking the idea around for about a week, I came up with something he liked. And he says, well, I guess we should, talk about it and, see what we can do. So, we spent the afternoon hashing out the story. And I said, look, if this doesn't work, we're going to have a backup idea. And he was like, well, you know what? It's already a hard enough genre, to kind of break. So I said, well, just hear me out here. I said, what if we do kind of like a Romeo and Juliet story? But instead of Montagues and Capulets, we do werewolves on one side and vampires on the other. And make it like this surrealistic, star-crossed love story amidst a race war that spans 600 years. And he was like, oh man, is that gonna work? I said, if we do it right, and lo and behold, here we are. So, yeah, so that was the genesis of, the whole project. So I wrote the original screenplay. I was unrepresented at the time. So they brought in another writer. And, we hashed the story, made some changes, and, the rest is history. Yeah.
Awesome. So what was your process in transforming yourself into Raze from Underworld? Did you feel connected to Raze from the start due to being a part of the screenplay, or was it always like an intention to play it?
Well, it was always the intention for me to play it. I mean, I was acting too.
Right.
So, when you write a screenplay as an actor, you always want to put yourself in it. But you also want to be very, very careful, I know a lot of actors who wanted to turn writer or wanted to write themselves a vehicle like I did as well. But they wanted themselves to be number one on the call sheet.
Right.
That's not really smart, So what I wanted to do is put myself usually number 5 through 10 on the call sheet. That way they leave you alone, So if you want to play this role, they're like, oh yeah, fine, who cares, And that's exactly what happened. And so I felt that connection, if that's what you're talking about. There was nothing Essex Nation or anything.
So being a producer and writer, do you feel that comics help you create a storyboard, or do you think that it hinders you from wanting to do something different with some of the imagery?
No, not at all. I mean, if anything, it helps me visualize. It also, allows you to maintain a modicum of control over the expression, when it gets turned into a film, It also allows you more money since you created the underlying IP. And, it lives to fight another day in a different medium or different mediums. So that's why I do that.
When producing comics and films, are you looking for roles for yourself, or is it the story that mostly draws you in?
Well, it's the story because, like, look, I'm creating them. So obviously, it's the story that, provides the impetus for my doing it in the first place. But I always make sure there's a role that I can play, you know.
Awesome. Do you feel that your degrees from Howard University in microbiology, chemistry, and psychology helped create a bridge between science and horror for you?
Uh, yes and no. I mean, yes, because, the impetus for my getting into science fiction was, well, getting into real science as a career and as a degreed individual was science fiction. But there's really, at least back then, there was no way to really sublimate that into something that was socially acceptable. So, once I decided to make that move, then yes, it has helped me into going through a process of trying to make sure what I do sounds realistic. But truth be told, it's all comic book science anyway. It doesn't really work. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to have a degree to do that.
Right.
It's just that I might find a different mechanism to get into it and authenticate some aspects of it, that's all.
As a comic book fan, which MCU character would you like to portray, or which character would you like to revive?
Well, the one I created was the Blue Marvel.
Right.
So that's at the top of my list. But my favorite characters growing up, and I'm not ever going to get a chance to play them.
Never say never.
Well, yeah, never. Yeah. My favorite title was the Fantastic Four. Yeah,
Nice.
and I mean, I don't know how much about comic books you guys know, but those issues from probably 33 to 73 were unparalleled in the annals of comic book history. And so, I mean, so many characters came out of that run. Black Panther, Silver Surfer, Galactus, the Inhumans, the Hive, him, Adam Warlock, the Kree. I mean, just so many. It's not even funny. So that was my favorite book growing up.
And then you started as a DC fan originally.
Yes. I don't know how you found that out. Yeah. But
There was a little story that said that Superman was your favorite to begin with.
yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he was my favorite to begin with. But
Was
even
that-
but he did something that I was like, oh, I've had enough. It's too ridiculous. And I was just like, you know what? I can see why people like Marvel more. And so that's where I went to after that. So
Just like many of people, you take your first stepping stone and you learn about your characters, and then you see the evolution of other characters in
Yeah.
other universes, and then you kind of
Yeah.
gravitate more towards one over the other.
yes.
So, what have been some of your most favorite scenes from films from your extensive list of shows and movies that you've done that just resonate with you always?
That's a rough one.
I like to make you think.
Yeah, the reason why it's rough is because what you guys see on screen feels differently when we're actually shooting it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because I might be under makeup. You know what I'm saying? So I'm disconnected from certain things. A scene might be pieced together, and I might just have one aspect. I mean, I might be there for just one part of it. But not the other parts that you guys see. Like, for instance, with the whip scene in Underworld, well, a lot of people don't know that wasn't me in the suit. That was a taller, skinnier guy, who could fit into it. And he was the one who was actually getting, cracked with the whip. Although I think I did get hit once or twice. Yeah. And, but, it's kind of different. So I guess the opening scene to Underworld, where I'm firing at Kate Beckinsale's character, Celine, that was cool. And mostly because I get to use some guns, and they felt really good, just to kick from them, using full loads.
Yes.
Now, they would never do that nowadays, especially after what happened with Alex Baldwin.
Correct.
And I understand, but that scene was cool. You know, the Hulk was was my second favorite character growing up. So when I was in the Hulk movie with Eric Bana playing one of Betty Ross's bodyguards, that was pretty cool. You know, I remember that one. Uh, the mask, I guess I had a little bit of a longer scene, but I was like, you know, started taking over the room or the gun or whatever. That was cool. But I have fun. I mean, it's all make believe. It's
Right.
like stuff you used to do when you were a kid, but you used to get spanked for if you made too much noise. So, you know, so that was fun.
Working with Kate Beckinsale with for Underworld, what was something that she taught you that you've taken on with your career that you've used, you know, to this day that kind of just stayed with you?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. I mean, she's cool and all,
Right.
but I only had one scene with her, and like I mentioned to you guys before, you know, the way the cameras turn, you know, she was off camera, you know, and so I didn't mind without her actually being there. I was there watching her when she did her part, but you know, I didn't have to be in the scene, you know, to do any of that, you know. But it was cool, you know. She's a cool actress.
If anything in the Underworld movies, is there anything that you have seen now that the movies have been out that you would have changed about Raze and how his character went about?
You know, he wouldn't have died, you know, but I got overruled though, and that's what happened a lot of times. Um, Let me see. I would have gone more into where he came from and, you know, why he was able to do some of the things that he was going to do. I would have liked for there to have been a spinoff, you know. That would have been really cool.
It's never too late.
Because the thing is, he could have taken over for Lucian after Lucian died. But I didn't really look at the way it progressed after the first one, or really, I guess you could say the third one, because there could have been so much more that, you know, that could have been done. But, you know, the creators don't really have that strong of a hand when it comes to the direction of a lot of these stories. That's up to the producers. They're the ones with, you know, so they control, you know, what happens, and that's just the way that it is.
What was the evolution of I, Frankenstein like for you?
I actually don't want to talk about that, but I will.
Oh, okay.
That was a horrible movie, and you know, my original screenplay was vastly different. And what I tried to do was, and maybe you can learn something from this, I don't know. What I tried to do was essentially create or recreate that universal monster feeling with a universe where all the monsters existed. But the producers, even though they bought the script, I found out later that they didn't understand that. You know, I mean, there was even a problem with the first Underworld movie, in which they didn't understand whether or not people would know the difference between the Vikings and the vampires. And it's like, you know, this is going to be an uphill battle. And I even had a scene in my original screenplay where Adam, Frankenstein, meets Celine, and it was going to be a crossover. But that got nixed for reasons that I didn't know. Like, you know, Underworld was distributed by, I think it was Screen Gems, but Frankenstein was going to be distributed by Lionsgate, so we could not have that crossover. So that nixed that, which is really sad. But they came in and ripped my script apart and changed it into something I didn't even understand anymore. And, you know, then fired my director. And, you know, and I got fired twice. You know, the writer that came after me tried to fix my script, but he couldn't do it. So they hired me back Well, but I was only going to move but so much because I wanted to keep the integrity of what I was actually trying to do. And you know what? That didn't work. And they hired another guy, Stuart Beatty. And Stuart's a nice guy. But the movie, the script just was not there, And, when it comes to creating these universes, most of these executives and producers just don't understand geek culture. They understand the money, the potential of the money that these cultures generate, but they don't understand what it goes into creating them. They're looking at them from an outsider, normie kind of view. And as you can see, like the Dark Universe, in fact, I remember when someone called me, or actually sent me an email, that Universal was going to create this dark universe where all the monsters were in one universe, just like the Marvel Universe. And I immediately emailed that off, an angry email to Lakeshore, and said, look, see, this is what I tried to do when I Frankenstein. I got a call, like, 30 seconds later, let's have lunch, And it's like, they just did not get it. They tried to apologize, and it's like, nah, this could have been us. But as you can see, even that didn't work, the Universal Dark Universe. And it's because, once again, the producers, they don't understand these things. They really don't. And that's why a lot of great ideas get scuttled, but what can you do? I don't have $55 million in my pocket to, do the movie myself. So it is what it is.
What would you tell our aspiring screenwriters and producers that are out here making scripts and everything? What's the piece of advice that you would give to them to keep the integrity on their projects, or how to stand by them when working deals or looking to move forward with projects?
You know what? I would say, rather than write screenplays, I would create graphic novels. Now, the reason being is because it becomes more of a property, more of an intellectual property, an IP that you own. And once you have that, prospective producers can see what you're trying to do, and, they know right away whether or not they like it or they don't like it. But they also know if you have something that's already tangible in your hand that is a creative entity unto itself, you can take that elsewhere. And that means that if you do, they miss out. But it can live to fight another day as a video game, going to conventions, selling your wares, any number of things. And so, I say create the graphic novel rather than the screenplay, even though the screenplay is not going to cost you anything. But the graphic novel is yours, and it's visual, it's tactile, and you get to, do different things with it.
Do you feel that with the graphic novel you get to put more imagery into it as far as like conveying what you're really putting out there and giving your actual storyline and giving that feel instead of where the screenplay that's into its own self-interpretation when someone else is reading it?
Exactly. The graphic novel is going to be more pure and authentic because it has your voice, Film is a collaboration, a welcome collaboration, can be. But film is more collaborative, and you're going to have to yield the floor to a lot of people when it comes to getting a movie made, or graphic novel made into a movie. But that's just the way it is,
What are some of your newer projects that you're working on that you'd like to share with people?
I just directed a film called King of Killers, starring Elaine Lucy, Frank Grillo, and Stephen Dorff, and it should be out next year. Already before it came out, we got the green light to turn it into a TV series.
Oh, nice.
So, that's something. Sold another script to 50 Cent and Eli Roth's company called Preacher House. And so we're turning that into a movie and hope to be a franchise. Working on a litany of things, more comic books, video games, things like that.
What are some of your favorite video games to dive into to help give you creative content? What do you get lost in?
You know what? I stopped playing video games a while ago, and no one said anything, but I remember my favorite game was, I was a Madden freak, okay? And you really get caught up in those sports games.
Oh, yes.
I would play whole seasons in one sitting, and I remember I just had my first child, and I was sitting in a chair playing, and my wife walks by me with the baby in her hand. She didn't say anything, walks by with the baby in her hand, and I'm like, maybe this isn't such a good idea, because eventually she's gonna say something, and so I just said, you know what, just put it away, but I still bought the games, even though I didn't play them. I bought, what was that one? The Microsoft, the second generation Xbox, the one that stood up vertically.
Oh, the
was it Xbox One?
Xbox One.
Yeah, bought that, played it twice, and I knew someone at EA, and they would give me free games like BioShock, Fallout. I got into playing a couple of racing games like Gran Turismo or the Need for Speed. Got the driving wheel and all that, and it's fun. But once again, it's like I got mouths to feed, scripts to write. I don't play them anymore. I wish I could, but I just don't.
You could when you're on the road. Just take it travel in the hotel.
Yeah, but you know what? It's already hard to carry all this merch, so.
So you were sucked into Madden, huh?
Yeah.
I used to go to a lot of Madden tournaments and.
Yeah, you see, when I used to go to E3 every year.
Yeah.
And E3 was fun, but what I didn't like about it is that the kids would hog up the console and no one else would get a chance to play. And I don't know what it is about kids, but they have a kind of manual dexterity that is unfathomable, and you can't beat them, And these kids would exercise the special moves and all this. I'm like, dang, God, shouldn't you be in school? But.
So you went into writing comic books. You launched that in 2003, I believe.
Yeah.
And you've been doing that ever since. How many titles do you have now?
Probably about 20-something. And now all of them have been printed,
Right.
When you have a family and, you got to balance a lot of that. You know what I'm saying? And so you can allocate certain amount of dollars towards your creative endeavors. But most of it is for the family, So you print and, I'm always creating, but you print when you get the opportunity, when the money is available. And that's the way I look at that. So, but I have a lot available and, I'm still creating more. So, you learn to make deals so you can get them printed and then they come out and you can do what you can with them.
Is there a comic book that you wrote that you felt like was just gonna take off right out the market, and it just kind of seems a little underrated, and you wish that people were more into it?
I did a book called ZMD, Zombies of Mass Destruction, and I wanted to turn that into a movie. Now, fortunately, there was another. When my book was finished, there was a movie that came out, a low-budget movie called ZMD2, Zombies of Mass Destruction. I don't think that went anywhere, but, we almost got that made into a movie, and I think we got $13 million, and the director wanted 25. Couldn't raise it. That was it. So, and I thought that was a good concept. It's at my table if you want to read the first issue. But yeah, that was one that I was really disappointed that it didn't get, go as far as I wanted it to. But, and I hate zombies, but I came up with an idea that I thought was pretty unique, pretty interesting. So,
Have you tried, with all of the new streaming things that are happening and all of that, how do you feel it is to possibly, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, like
Well,
trying to break through some of your scripts and stuff for more streaming than instead of like the big screen?
Yeah. Well, getting into those places, easier said than done. The attrition rates of a lot of the executives who say they have deals or who you're told have green light power, is very high, and so, I've been in some meetings with people at Amazon Prime, Netflix, and, a lot of these people are, like I said, they're like the producers who don't understand the culture or only understand their aspect of it, which is not my deal, and so you kind of butt heads, or it's like, doesn't even sound cool, but once again, you have this money, so either you capitulate or, they're kind of like the board, the simulator died, but, hey.
So I'm going to ask you one last question, and we'll open it up to some questions from the audience. Knowing that you are a Minnesota Vikings fan, when you played Madden, were you always the Vikings, or did you change it up?
I was the Vikings sometimes, and then I would make up my own team. Like I call them the Pharaohs, or after my college team, Bison or something like that. And I put all my friends as the football players, or, I had one team where I named everyone after Marvel heroes, things like that. So yeah, so I had a lot of fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What are you hoping for your Vikings for this year?
You know what? I'm just hoping to be a couple of games above 500. They're doing well right now, but I will also say that the Eagles handle them, and so much so that it's like, this team is no good, and
But you love them anyway.
I'm not a Kirk Cousins fan. I don't think he's a bad quarterback, but he's not worth that money. And then the money they did pay him precludes us from getting top defensive talent, So we could have kept Case Keenum, who took us on to the championship game, paid him $13 million, and waited for a quarterback to drop to us or something like that. Like, I look at Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, who is a beast and a half. Who's that kid for San Diego? Justin Herbert.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, what about those cats? Maybe we could have had one of those guys, but, hey, I'm not the GM, so.
All right, do you guys have any questions for him? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, of course. Like King of Killers, for instance. I had to wear, 4 different hats: writer, director, producer, actor. 5 really, graphic novel creator. And every actor has the things they want to do. And sometimes you agree with it, sometimes you don't. But you want to be accommodating and you want to be collaborative. So, a lot of times you say, okay, well, let's explore this, And, like, I remember one of the actors, she had a meltdown. And she was like, Kevin, I'm going to cry. I'm like, oh, man, not today. And then I remember one day, she said, I'm not coming into work. I can't do it. I can't do the scene. And we told the producer, he was like, oh, yes, she is. She's getting paid. She's coming to set. And that's when she said, I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry. You're going to hate me. Kevin hates me. And I'm like, oh, man. So you're a babysitter, too. But a lot of times, too, they might be right. They might see something that is deficient in your script as far as their character, and they want to change things, and I'm perfectly okay with that,
All right, any other questions? Go ahead. We'll come back over to you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, like I told you, I'm not in the suit, So if you're talking about my, Raze attire, it's like putting on regular clothes, yeah. Yeah, just put on regular clothes, you know. Um, but, you know, as an actor, you're a tool. So, you know, I could be on set all day and they use me in one scene, you know. Or you're there for, you know, just a couple of minutes or, you know, an hour or so, whatever. I mean, that's the way it works.
Go ahead with your question.
I could not hold a tune if I had a picnic basket. Yeah, but, you know, I did, they offered me a scholarship in college. They had me sing a couple of bars or whatever, but I'm like, man, I'm 18 years old. And I'm like, I didn't come here for that. You know, what are you doing to me? You know, so I was like, forget this, you know.
All right. One last question in the far back.
You know what? I think because of how modern action films are done, you look at what, you know, the Thundercats and the genre are doing. Like, I think his name is Chad Stahelski, who did John Wick. You know, you look at, you know, I should say 8711, the way they choreograph. So, you look at John Wick, Atomic Blonde. You look at what is his name? Somebody young who choreographed a lot of the Marvel movie fights. You look at, you know, the guy who choreographed, I think it was the same guy who did the first season of Daredevil, you know. That was bad, you know. I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I mean, that's the kind of action I want. So, yeah, those were, you know, inspirations.
Awesome.
Luc Besson, too, I like that.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you, Kevin, for your panel. He's,
Thank you.
Oh, okay. And then he'll be back at his table shortly, so you guys can go over there and get pictures and autographs and have some more conversation with them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.